Chief Brian Fuller from Greenacres. He was uh, he was able to come in today on his busy schedule to the Beachway podcast after the call. And what an honor it is to have Brian here. And he's like us. He's a big advocate for the mental health community. And Chief Fuller, would you introduce yourself?
I will. As Tim said, Chief Brian Fuller. I'm currently the Fire Chief, City of Greenacres Fire Rescue. I began my career as a firefighter in 1994, in June or July of 1994. And it's a great honor to be here today, Tim, with you. We've known each other for quite a long time.
Yeah.
I want to thank Beachway Therapy Center for having us here today on the podcast after the call. I love that. I love that name.
Isn't it wonderful? Because so many things happen to lives, after they make that call, when they make that call for you and you and your dedicated people come and help. That's all you guys do is serve your communities. They made that call. It was the best call that they ever made, right?
Right.
In most cases.
Absolutely.
And that goes even in the treatment industry. I know people that have called years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It was the best call that they ever made. So I agree with you. I think after the call is a wonderful name. And so tell us what you are seeing over the years. Is there anything that's standing out specifically to you, or, in the mental health, the addiction, the depression, the suicidal ideations?
All of that, Tim, that you mentioned is happening. It's been happening. No one ever thought, I never thought in my wildest dreams that I'd be here on a podcast talking about mental health of our first responders in the community. Never would I have thought the statistics would be what they are. Palm Beach County leads the state of Florida in the number of suicide deaths for first responders. That's not a good time to be number one.
Yeah.
We are seeing first responders struggle with the trauma, the stress of doing the job, and like you said, what happens after that call, and we need, and I'm glad to see that the fire chiefs and police chiefs and the community is getting behind this and recognizing it, make it easier for those first responders to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm struggling.
What do you think? I mean, not only, of course, because, people like yourself and your comrades, they serve, they have a server's heart, server's commitment. What do you think? Is there anything specifically that you can pinpoint that might have pushed these people, that might have been like, oh, just suck it up. This is what you signed up for. Is there anything,
well, certainly the fire service, any of those first responder type professions, they're paramilitary organizations. We'll use the military as well. We'll bring that in a little bit. You're expected to go from 0 to 100. And what if you're not performing at 100%? There's a stigma, right?
Yeah.
To machismo, if you will, to go out and do your job and then come back and, suck it up and get ready for the next call. It's difficult often for first responders to admit that they are struggling.
Yeah, I've seen that as a Marine. I've seen that in the Marine Corps as well. I still see it today. I've been an addictions counselor for almost 20 years now, and I've been in this space for just as long almost. I was given a tremendous gift, and I never wanted to let go of that. And, it's kind of like I have to keep doing what was so freely given to me. And I see it even in treatment. I see the egos. I see people trying to always figure things out, and I see their ego get rubbed the wrong way when I say your way's not working. And, the chest comes out a little bit and the head, what do you mean it's not working? I said, well, I'm talking to you in treatment, no disrespect. But something has become unmanageable.
Sure,
like something's not working. So how can I help you, to break down that ego, because like ego to me is all it's all born in thought. It's all thought formed. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what it is. And that's probably, we all have that challenge, right? You have that challenge in your own way. I have that challenge in the space that I'm in my own way. And, I tell people a lot, you can't fix the problem with the same thinking that created the problem.
Correct.
And I tell you, boy, going against that, I don't know, that mule donkey mentality sometimes. It's like, gosh, I wish I could just pull them aside and be like, just put your chin a little to the side, let me just, but I can't, I can't do that. Do you find like, do you get frustrated sometimes amongst your ranks? Like I can get frustrated sometimes.
I don't, because I understand it now a lot more. Maybe years ago, if you would ask me that question, I would have a different answer. But, I know that there are so many things out there that can cause a first responder to struggle, right? And a lot of times it's not their fault.
Oh, yeah.
Right? A lot of times it's not their fault.
Yep.
They see what someone might see in their lifetime, a regular lay person who's not in the profession, can see some traumatic events. And if anybody out there is watching this and they are that type of person, think back. I'm sure you can remember a time where you saw a traumatic accident on the interstate, and you will never forget that.
No.
Well, multiply that over a 30-year career for someone who sees that 2 or 3 times a day. Maybe the car accident, the death, the overdose, the child who drowns. There's we're often called to domestic disturbances, and you have your first responders, your police officers, your the whole system seeing that 300 times more than the most people will see in their lifetime.
It's incredible. I think, for lack of a better term at the moment, I think it burns a spot into the brain. I really do. Like it just, because, a lot of trauma books and literature and trauma therapists that specialize in trauma, they're all in agreement. The body keeps score. It has memories, it has feelings, it keeps score by smell. There's all kinds of things that the body keeps score of, and the brain on top of that is the greatest scorekeeper of all time. It keeps score of everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you find, like, I know I find a lot, people go, it's just little, it's just a little thing. But then I counter that if I'm in an individual session with them, if I'm in a group session, if I'm coaching them, because I'm also a certified recovery coach too, and if I'm coaching them, I say, so I would use you if you were a client of mine, you had your glasses on, I say, take your glasses off, Chief Fuller, or Johnny, take your glasses off. And they'd be like, well, don't worry about that. Just follow through, right? You're here for a session, right? I'm trying to help you. And take your glasses off. And I just want you to hold your arm out straight with the glasses in your hand. Well, what's the sense? Just do it. Just keep doing it. Okay. After a minute, everybody would have their different time, but eventually that thing's going to get really heavy. And your arm's going to be like, because my arm's already starting to feel it. And then they finally say, okay, I can't do it anymore. I said, great. I was waiting for you to get to that point. They're like, well, what's the sense? What's behind that? I said, I'll tell you exactly what's behind that. The littlest things over time get heavier and heavier and heavier. Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of, the environment.
For years, they've been taught to internalize everything.
Correct.
Right? Keep it in. You can't talk about it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I really love the name of this podcast after the call, because we're changing fire station design now to be more welcoming, so that after the call they can come back. No more dorm rooms, open dorm rooms. They're individualized bunk rooms, right? That offer them some security, some peace to come back to. What happens at the kitchen table, right? Come back and talk about the call. After the call, we have what's called an after action report. Serious fires, serious medical injuries. Everybody gets together and we talk about it. Hey, how can we have done better? Is everybody okay? And the real serious ones, I've seen a huge shift in the industry towards peer support, right?
Yeah.
Training
Yeah.
firefighters and leaders how to be peer support people,
Yeah.
to recognize that someone might be struggling.
Yeah. Because there's definitely very unique behaviors to it and characteristics to it, 100%.
Right. So after the call, we sometimes have to bring the peer support teams in, the therapy dogs and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's really good to see that, because that's helping.
Yeah.
That's helping.
You have Pause Be With You.
We do, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
As part of your process, part of the your mental health awareness, right?
Yeah. So just over a year ago, I reached out to a few organizations, Therapy Dogs International, and they put me in touch with Charlene with Pause Be With You.
Yeah, wonderful.
And Megan, our therapy dog. Oh my goodness. And he comes to the fire stations every Thursday and visits all the stations, and the firefighters have just embraced that,
Yeah.
And oftentimes after a serious medical emergency or what have you, Charlene will bring Negan and into the room during that after the call action.
And she kind of understands that to a certain extent. I mean, it's really hard to understand something you never experienced.
Well,
but her father was
correct.
Was a firefighter.
Her
right?
father was a firefighter who was badly burned in a fire, attempting to save his crew.
Yeah.
And she remembers that from a young age, right? And she wants to serve just like us.
Yeah.
And she gives back, and that's one way she does.
Yeah. And she does a phenomenal job.
Fantastic.
All the like the post and the social media, the little clips. You got all these big tough guys.
Yeah, right. And they're hugging. Negan.
You got these big tough guys. They're all like, oh. Yeah. But it's it's totally awesome because hey, we're human beings, man. Right. You know what I mean? We're designed to connect. We're designed to feel. Sometimes we don't like how we feel, and sometimes obviously we do. But it's like those little things, and that's what always intrigues me. About this walk that we're all doing. Like, how far away are we removed from the little things? But for some reason, the little things have so much reward to them. They expand so much, Well,
like you said, the little things can add up in the negative way, or the little things can add up in a positive way.
Oh, I love that.
If we can meet that in the middle, then
that's perfect, right? So balance is key.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Creating an environment, in the fire service, I've seen it evolve, and what we're trying to do now is create an environment where they have a good work-life balance, right? We're adjusting shift schedules. We're recognizing that they're sleep deprived. All right, so we're trying to adjust schedules in that way where they can get more time off or longer duration before they have to return to work.
So vigilance.
Yeah,
right, and awareness,
right,
and
awareness,
proactive.
We're designing fire stations to be more like homes, more than they are already, right? So that they can have it, because they spend 33% of their life at a fire station. They're away from their families and birthdays, and they miss all these, births to deaths to things. We're doing more to make sure that we recognize their service, dignity, and meaning, and opportunity to grow. Right? We're offering where they can go learn and take college classes and do better, and it makes them feel better, and then they, promote through the ranks. And
I think too, there's a lot of you guys are doing a lot of good, and you're starting to move in that route, and I wouldn't be surprised, maybe not immediately, because I don't think something like this is immediate. But I think it's kind of like you're setting yourselves up. You're designing fire stations, for God's sakes, that cost millions of dollars to design a better environment, a more conducive environment. More comfortable, like you said, a more relaxed. I wonder what that's going to morph into. If you're building fire stations, like I said, you're kind of playing long ball. You're not playing a short game. You're playing the long game. I'm just wondering, would we see a difference in some of these statistics, like the Palm Beach County statistics, right?
Yeah.
From 2017 to
2022, the Federal Department of Health did a study, And mind you, these statistics that we talk about today are only the ones that are reported. I can't imagine the ones that aren't, right? So you might have to double or triple what we're saying today. But between 2017 and 2022, 39 to 44 first responders took their life each year.
Gosh.
Each year.
And Palm Beach County is the highest out of any county in Florida. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is there anything? I always ask that question because maybe one day I'll hit the jackpot or something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's a specific reason? Because I think everything has a cause and a condition. I just do.
Yeah.
There's a cause and condition behind everything. But I also believe in solutions, and I think everything has a solution. Do you think there's something specific in that? Why, all these counties, Florida, takes you 12 hours to drive through the state, but it's Palm Beach County.
I don't have that answer. I think there's people much smarter than me out there that could probably figure that out. I can only say from experience, we have a very large call volume here.
Yeah.
We're very, very busy in Palm Beach County.
Yeah.
Palm Beach County, as you imagine, a lot of people want to come work, play, and all kinds of stuff here, and the rate we're growing.
Yeah.
So, the frequency that we see things, right? If you're at a slower station, slower department, somewhere maybe that doesn't run both fire and medical, right? Because there's a lot of fire departments out there that just do fire. And then there's, over on the west coast of Florida, it's
different. It's set up different.
Yeah. So maybe, you're not seeing all of that as much.
Are medical parked at fire stations, or medicals, do they have their own spots?
Well, that's a great question, for those that don't know. In Palm Beach County, your professional firefighters are certified in both.
Nice.
So they're firefighters, and they're also EMTs or paramedics.
Is that a requirement now?
Yes. Yeah. And in most South Florida fire agencies are like that across the country as well. And so they're seeing it from both sides.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the country too, because statistically, we're losing more first responders to suicide than we are in the line of duty. Is that correct? I think I am.
That is correct. And that is something that just, when I found that out a few years ago, Tim, you were the first person I called.
Yeah.
And I said to you, I never thought that I would read a statistic where we're losing more people to suicide than in the line of duty. The job itself is extremely difficult and very risky, if you will. It's listed as one of the top 10 jobs that you could ever have, that's for risk. And my God, we're losing them to suicide more.
I have to be honest right now, man. I got a little angry, that there's a space created where I can't pick up my phone and say, Chief Fuller, I'm not doing well. I need help.
Yeah.
Like, talk about stigma. Talk about, I don't know what to say right now, because I didn't think that was going to come on me in this moment, but that's great. That's what's great about podcasts. It's all live.
Sure.
And I don't know any other way to put it. We've been given a tremendous gift. I think what you and I do is a different kind of hard.
Right. Tim, we have to change the culture of the
100%.
Organizations, right? We have to let them know that it's okay to say, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
It's
I need
okay
help
to say I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And that your job will be protected.
Yeah.
You're not going to lose your job.
Yeah.
We're going to get you the help. We're going to get you to a therapy center like Beachway.
Yeah.
Just make that call.
Yeah.
Right. Make that call after the call, and there's going to be, it's going to be anonymous, and we're going to take care of you.
Yeah.
And to get that help you need, because 99% of the time it's not your fault.
Yeah.
One of the neatest things I've seen, something that just has one of the components to this. Our friends at Wired Biohealth, Jackie. God bless her. What they're doing there.
What a warrior.
Where you can, a simple cheek swab can identify biomarkers
Yep.
in your
Yep.
genetics
Yep.
that can say, this is why you feel the way you feel.
Yeah.
And immediately, that first responder
Yeah.
has a reason
Yeah.
why they feel the way they feel.
Yeah.
And I think that science, coupled with proper therapy,
Yeah.
like Beachway,
Yeah.
with therapists who understand
Yep.
their job,
Culturally
because
competent. Yep.
that's another problem
Yep.
is, reaching out to EAP sometimes in organizations.
Yep.
They're talking to someone that has no idea what they're going through,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Has no idea
Yep.
the stress
Yep.
of the job
Yep.
because they've never been there before.
Right back to my point, right? How do you understand something you've never experienced?
Exactly. So I think what I'm excited about is
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
that leaders in these
Oh, yeah.
professions
Yep.
are recognizing the issue,
Yep.
and they're starting to create
Yep.
behavioral health policies. I see just on the news recently where Palm Beach Sheriff's Office,
Yeah.
got therapy dogs.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of organizations
Yeah.
are changing the design of fire stations, changing, things within themselves
Yeah.
to recognize the issue and help.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, and there's so many things changing in the culture,
Sure.
and a lot of the changes that are being, or that are happening. A lot of people say you have to let them, be who they are. Otherwise they're gonna commit suicide or they're gonna harm themselves. And you got people in treatment centers, that are cutting themselves, and you got people that are purging, and you got people that act out with violence. And you made a great point too about the where I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? Oh, what could we do? So Beachway has an amazing trauma track, and you have to do an assessment. And the assessment's really intense, very thorough to get in, because it gets really deep. It's traumatic, right? You're dealing with stuff that cut you, sort of say.
So you're peeling that onion, right?
Yeah, and trauma's a different animal, right? Because it's just so deep and it's so damaging and it's so penetrating to like so much. It's just your being. It penetrates everything of your being. And what do you think somebody who has a trauma track? Because like in our track, if of course we want the commitment, but if you can't uphold the commitment, you're asked to leave.
Yeah.
Until you can earn your spot back again. Because there's other things going on. It's a group of people. We have 2 full-time trauma therapists. That's all they do. What could somebody like Beachway implement? I know you don't know our full track, but just off the top of your head, it might be something that we're not doing or somebody else isn't doing for a first responder.
Well, knowing what I know about Beachway and knowing you, right?
Yeah.
It started a while ago, and you didn't even know it. You come and you visit the fire stations. You've been to my fire station with, you've ridden on the calls, on the trucks. You were on the fire engine itself. Seeing, even though you were in the military, you were in the Marines, and that's as close as you can probably get to it.
Yeah.
You took the time to come out and
Yeah.
learn,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we just talked about how a first responder makes that call, but they're talking to a therapist that has no idea what they're going through, right? I think the therapists, any type of person who's involved in the treatment of that person, has to understand
So culturally,
where they're coming from, has to understand what the job is like, why they are the way they are. Most people don't know the statistics we were saying earlier about they're away from their families. They're at the fire stations a third of their life during their career.
Do you think, so we were talking about it before, so do you think if there was a family member that had a mom or a dad, as a first responder, that they can understand it, but only to a certain point? Because they actually weren't doing it. Like, do you think that plays a role? Would that play a role with a first responder? Like, yeah, but your father was. Like, say if I was a therapist and, I kind of disclosed a little bit, hey, I'm here for you. My father was a first responder. Do you think a first responder seeking help would use that against me? Like, yeah, you might know what it looks like and you grew up in it, but you still didn't do it. You know what I mean? Like, because there's always resistance with trauma.
It's possible, right? Because the son or daughter or family members, spouses of a first responder, they see the effect of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they live it. Yeah.
So, but they don't understand sometimes why it's happening.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I was recently at a seminar talking about this topic.
Yeah.
And what I liked about it is they had one whole session of that seminar where you invited your spouses that were with you to come.
Oh, wow.
And they spoke about the job. Right?
Uh-huh.
And one of the funniest things I ever heard, and there's some of them, there's others, but one that comes to mind from that was the last thing a first responder wants to do when they come home from a tough shift is decide what's for dinner. Right? Right? Because they are making decisions, life-saving decisions sometimes, in seconds.
Yeah, now everything is now.
Everything's
now.
High level hitting you.
Yeah.
And then they come home.
Yeah.
And they get bombarded with questions, and the one question that they hate to answer is what's for dinner. You know? I mean, it's a little thing.
Yeah.
But it really stuck with me because then I remember all those times that I struggled with what's for dinner. You know? It's such a simple thing to think of, but it's hard to, get your mind around. Well, I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense because, like you said before, you go 0 to 100
all the time.
All the time. So if I'm at 100, man, it takes a while to come back down to 0. Like,
imagine you're asleep, 2:00 in the morning. You're asleep.
Yeah.
And that tone goes off.
Yeah.
So I talk about station design.
Yeah.
When I first started, the horn was in my ear. The lights turn on.
Oh, gee.
And you go from resting heart rate of whatever asleep to having to be dressed and in that truck at 2:00 in the morning in a minute to a minute and 20 seconds.
Incredible surge.
Knowing what the call type is, how to get there, and start thinking a plan on how you're going to attack that.
Yeah.
Think about that as a normal lay person having to do that. So now station design it's ramping tones. So the tones start a little bit low, but then they get higher. Right? The lights come on a little bit lower.
Slower kind of, right?
Slower, right? And if you're not even involved in the call, you don't even hear it.
How do you know if you are or not? Do you have certain
there's
tones
certain colors, and then in your individualized bunk room, which we never had any when I first started. We slept in bunk beds in rooms. Everybody slept near each other. Everybody was snoring. You had to throw a shoe at somebody to get them to stop snoring. And you think about females in the fire service too. They were put in those rooms. Now we have separate.
I was in a fire station down in Fort Lauderdale back in April.
When you did the walk. 70-mile walk.
Yeah, I did a 70-mile walk. And then when I was in Fort Lauderdale, that was the first house that I seen that had the individual bunks.
Right.
Yeah, it was nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're on an engine, for instance, and it's a medical call, you might not even hear the call because each room lights up. They actually have a pad where they tell where the personnel are sleeping, so that if it's a call for just your unit, it only wakes up those people.
I just had a thought.
It just blows my mind.
Yeah, I just had a thought because you're so involved, man. You speak all over. You're just so. I had a thought. I was like, man, Chief Full is the best guy to ask this question to. Do they have any vibrating mattresses?
You put me on the spot there. I don't
I can go way out sometimes.
I know the technology's there.
It is, yeah. Like I think sometimes they have them in like hotel rooms, like the hearing impaired or something.
Right, they do.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. They do.
Oh man, that was great. So I mean, what a wonderful just what a wonderful time this is, just to reach people, to tell people what's going on, to have you involved, to support the cause, to support the changing culture, for the good, and to get those numbers down. And, like you said, I have a 501c myself, stomping out the stigma. And, that's been a phenomenal segue into helping the first responders, because there's no invoicing, there's no HR, there's no EAP, there's no diagnosis, there's nothing. I know so many people that when this started 3 years ago, the therapists I know, especially the trauma therapists, how could we serve? It takes a certain person to be a trauma therapist. It takes a certain person to be a therapist. It just does, because not only is it first responder stuff, it may be childhood stuff, and you don't realize it until you're in the environment, how much is going on to children, with children and dysfunctional families and alcoholic families, drug addict families, abandonment, adoption. Like it's really bad. It's really bad. So, and so this stomping out the stigma is all about people who are want to serve. And I can get in front of somebody, and I can only do so much, and just be vulnerable, because I think a lot of first responders and many people, right, that are struggling, or they have a hard time being vulnerable. So I think for me, I counter that. I become very vulnerable. And I don't know if it makes people too uncomfortable. I don't think so, because if they're listening to somebody that said, hey, I want you to go talk to this guy because we're concerned about you, and then they show up, and then I can be vulnerable, I think that has power to it too. That it will help somebody follow through, because not everybody still follows through, knowing it's totally confidential. Without anonymity, it's not going to work. Like you said, I just walked 70 miles to raise money free, so you guys can get in a safe spot and do some work on you. You're working on everybody else. I think it's only the right thing for us, as a civilian, to be there for people that are always there for me, that never think twice. Some people can't even pick up the phone, for God's sakes. It's like a 900 pounds. But God forbid there's an emergency, and they pick that thing up right away. And you guys never question none. Boom.
Yep.
We got to be there for you guys. Like we have. So, so stomping out the stigma is trying to eliminate that. Well, I ain't saying nothing. If I say something, they're going to put me on desk duty. If not, everybody's going to be talking about me. If not, they're going to send me on donut runs, or what the mind does, man.
That's right.
That's right. If you're a police officer, they're going to take your weapon away from you. I ain't saying nothing. Meanwhile, you're crumbling. Internally, it's getting worse and worse. You go home, and the wife says something, or whatever happens at the, you might lose your, pop your top, or...
Yeah.
It's bad.
They may ask you what's for dinner, and it just sets you off. The little things. Tim, I'm such a huge proponent. I get behind anything like stomping out the stigma. I'm very excited about what Beachway Therapy Center is doing.
November 12th.
In recognizing this kind of stuff. And we're seeing resources now at the state level. They're recognizing it as well, and we're making positive change here. And I know the numbers are going to come down in Palm Beach County with programs like this.
Yeah, I feel
with
it.
Stomping out the stigma, raising awareness. How many people did we meet along that 70-mile walk?
Oh my God,
that had no idea.
How many first responders opened up to me?
Right. And that's what it takes. It's going to take those talks, those awareness. It's going to take leaders to change their focus and recognize, start therapy dog programs, have BHAP policies, have peer support training, right? My peer support team, our peer support team at Greenacres Fire Rescue, constantly learning the latest techniques and therapies that are out there. And wow, our friends at Wired Biohealth, integrating some type of testing, cheek swab testing to...
And that's spot on too, because the truth is, and no disrespect, man. I mean, we're all in this together, but there's room for other things, because there's a lot of things that aren't working.
Yeah.
And so no disrespect to any, my father was a doctor and I loved him to death. And I had the utmost respect for my father. The guy was phenomenal because he had that server's heart and that's why he became a doctor. But doctors medicate or prescribe based on what they're told. And in a lot of cases, right, there's always that adjustment period. You know, you go back, hey, doc, I'm feeling a little drowsy. Okay, well, maybe we'll back off this. Or I'm feeling a little oozy, you know, my stomach's a little, okay, maybe let me flip you over to this one. You know, there's that period of adjustment. But this biohealth, DNA, like you said, it pinpoints exactly where the weakness is, right?
That's right.
And then they can compound the supplement specifically based on DNA, not what you're saying.
Right. And coupled with therapy?
Coupled with therapy and that server's heart. You know, I had guys, you know, when I was doing my 70-mile walk, and you know, and a lot of these guys were opening up to me. I said, I just had one question. I said, why'd you open up like that so much? I said, one guy's like, I'll never forget this guy. He's like, dude, you're like into your 40th mile. You're a Marine and you're wearing the first responders flag, and your goal is to bring awareness. Yeah, this made my day that I could comfortably tell somebody how I'm doing and what I struggle with.
Yeah, you were not a barrier.
No.
Right.
No, because I find, like I was saying, you know, 10 minutes ago, I find it's a practice for me, and it's been a practice, and it will always be a practice, right? I live in the flesh. Yes, has my ego been reduced over the years? 100%. But it's still, you know, you got to gear it up to become vulnerable.
Right.
But I think vulnerability, you know, is the antidote, sort of say. So I'm no threat.
Yeah.
I'm no threat. You know, I don't know. Captain may be a threat. I don't know if I'm getting too far out. You know, let me just say somebody higher up, or I don't know. Just say if somebody in general might be a threat.
The stigma.
Thank you. There you go. Thank you. I needed a little help with that.
Right. That word explains almost everything.
Yeah.
It explains the challenges in reporting, or saying, hey, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Or you know, how the community perceives us, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not just firefighters when we're on duty.
Yeah.
We have to live to a higher standard off duty.
100%.
So sometimes that puts pressure.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Many people can go to work and do their job, and then they can do whatever they want on the weekends and nights and, and holidays and all that kind of other stuff. And you know, in our communities, our neighbors look to us. You know, when there's a hurricane approaching. You know, or I can remember, you know, just even now, you know, hey, my kid's sick. Can you come look at him? Well, I'm not a doctor, you know, or they cut themselves, or, you know, what have you. But they just see us in a different light.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for real.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And it's got to be a lot at times, for sure. So what do you find, you know, what do you find in first responders? Are you finding like there's things that are catching on, like kayaking? I don't know, a bunch of you guys get together and kind of like macho it out, or I don't know, bike rides. Like, you know, is there anything that you find catching on in your community that only you would know of, or maybe a lot of other people will know of now? And I'm asking you this question. You know, like, is there anything kind of happening like in that respect? Like,
well,
you know,
COVID really hurt us.
Yeah.
You know, that period of time really hurt everyone in the world, right? It doesn't matter if you're a first responder or not. Yeah. But what I've seen is more people doing their own thing, right? Yeah. Whereas pre-COVID, you had events and you had, you know, fundraising events and things. And I've seen a decrease in the participation in those extracurricular activities, but it's starting to creep back in.
Is it?
You know, one thing we're pretty proud of at Greenacres Fire Rescue is our recruit program, and during the recruit program they do a rut walk. And they walk from one station to another in the morning, like 4:30 in the morning, and we have a lot of community involvement in that. And that's one That's one thing, if I don't get off on too big of a tangent, is connecting your firefighters and your police officers and
100%.
first responders to the community.
100%.
Because really, that's why they got in the job in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Is to serve,
Yeah.
but also to help their community.
Yeah.
And when you do events like that and inviting the community and your elected officials to that, it really makes them feel good about what they're doing. But I'm seeing that come back. On our and on top of that, we had 5 of our personnel participate in the last firefighter combat challenge that was held by Palm Beach State College. That was a national event, and they all placed and went to the finals.
It's
in that.
incredible.
You know, so when you see that kind of stuff, you know that you're doing something right when you get that kind of level of participation from your employees.
Yeah. When we did the Stomping Out the Stigma, and we took our first, we
started at Station 95.
Yeah, we started on a Sunday, land down in Surfside on Friday afternoon.
Right.
Surfside Memorial in Miami, where you guys pulled out 98 people. I mean, the valor down there was just unbelievable. Like, it was very emotional for me. That whole thing changed my life.
So, you bring up a good point. Not only are they seeing this on the job, but then every critical crisis, terrible emergency like that, they're asked to go serve. And we had 12 personnel from our department go down there and work the pile.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
See, I just put it out there. Who wants to go home?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they all lined up. I bet you like that.
Lined up to go.
Yeah.
Our poor friends over on the West Coast with the hurricanes and the storms. Palm Beach County sent teams of first responders over there, law enforcement to help.
Yeah.
So they're seeing that.
Yeah.
And then they travel all over the world in specialized teams seeing those crises.
Yeah, I took off. I think it was Pompano, and then I got down into Fort Lauderdale. I think I visited 2 or 3 that day. Somehow, miraculously, I never had to go through the tunnel. That tunnel that kept popping up. We can't go through there, Timmy. There's too much construction.
Right.
We averted it somehow. What happened to that tunnel? But that morning, a guy I'd never even met, within 5 minutes, I thought I've known him my whole life, John.
Yeah.
He showed up with a 30-pound ruck pack.
Yep.
And he knocked the whole thing out with me. And you can just tell, man, I don't care who you are. During the walk, it's like, like after a while, after a few miles in, and we sit down on a bench somewhere, and, it was just, but he would never take it off. He was so dedicated to the cause. Oh, man, it gets...
you remember the first day you left, you had several firefighters in their air packs and full bunker gear do 11 miles.
I was going to get to that, too, because...
I was glad I was driving the truck.
But I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that one guy, and no offense, the young bucks, that one guy you had, man, was unbelievable. He was just like...
Yeah.
But the other guy, a little older, but his dedication to finish the mission was unbelievable, because you can just tell, that the movement. The guy was in a full gear. The only thing he didn't have was his oxygen mask on. And they trucked with their boots, and that was very moving to me. When we were in Miami, when we went over the bridge and had the fireboat there and all that.
Amazing.
I had no idea.
Amazing show of support.
Unbelievable. And those guys, when we were walking over that bridge, they were the first down there. That truck that was following us, escorting us over, was there. And they said, we did what we had to do. Obviously, I'm not going to put it the way he did, but we were all just all those people that were civilians walking with me. They're all just like...
That was a great day.
But they said we did what we had to do, but when it was our time to rotate, we couldn't go back. It was too much. We're very grateful for what you're doing. We need the support. Because I remember one guy saying he showed up there, and there was that one part of the building that only one of the walls pulled apart, and there's people standing in their apartment. Yeah. And they had the and then, of course, the noises and stuff under the pile, and unbelievable.
Yeah. It starts here, man. It started here. You know, who would have thought 11 years ago when I met you, Tim, we'd be here today talking about this?
I had no idea.
No idea.
No, it's impossible to connect the dots looking forward.
I never thought I'd be here talking about this.
No.
But we have to talk about it. You know, and I brought up something funny to you this morning. I don't know if you remember, but, you know, and this will probably only resonate with firefighters.
Yeah.
Is, you know, and I want to ask them one question. What if that dining room table could talk?
Oh.
Right? Because everything happens around the kitchen table in a firehouse. You go into any firehouse, they're all sitting around that kitchen table, and they're discussing everything from births to weddings to deaths. After the call. Where's the first place they go after the call? The dining table. And they talk about it, right? They talk about that dining room table knows more about those people than their spouses do, than their kids do, than their best friends do.
Hell yeah.
And if that dining room table could talk, we would save so many lives.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
And so if we could use that as kind of a, I don't know if it's the word I'm looking for, but a message. If the dining room table can talk and tell the stories, then you should be able to too, as well. You know what I mean?
I love that.
Just talk. Just make that call.
It's about getting people comfortable. You know, I see it all the time. I still facilitate groups. I love groups because I can use the insight of people. I can use their creative intelligence. I can use their hurts. I can use their joys. I can use everything in between, you know, because I believe, you know, if you're struggling, everything you need to know is already in you.
Yeah.
You need somebody just to help you, you know, nurture it and develop it and get comfortable with, like, you know, hey, I'm not doing good. Hey, this happened to me. Hey, you know, when you start creating that space, then it inspires somebody else. I would love to see like a monthly meeting maybe to start or something. I don't know, you know, amongst yourselves, and I think that would be phenomenal. You know, like just to get the ball rolling and you know, have people treat people with the respect that they deserve. You know, like my name's Tim. I pledge my confidentiality to this group. Because God forbid I'm out there chirping like a bird. I don't know how somebody's going to respond, especially when it was a support group and I'm amongst my own kind, and then it's one of my own kind out there chirping like a bird.
It would immediately be over.
Yeah, and I don't want to be responsible for that. Yeah. So my name's Tim. I pledge my confidentiality in a group. I'd have to do that sometimes because sometimes I can pick up on what people are doing. And they're about to go, and I said, I don't want to let you lose your momentum, but just hold on 1 second. Are you okay with that? Yeah, I'm okay. My name's Tim. I pledge my confidentiality to this group, and a lot of people, without the assistance, of course, they all sit there to go. Right. So I have to get into it, why I'm doing that right now, and I want you to follow.
And if any of you are watching this podcast or you're listening to this podcast right now, I can 100% tell you, hands down, he means what he says. He keeps it to himself. He does not. I know he's helped people. I know you've helped people, Tim.
Yep.
But I never know who that is. I just find it so gratifying knowing you're out there helping. I know people have reached out to you.
Oh yeah.
Because of the walk.
Yep.
Because of the work you're doing with Beachway Therapy Center.
Yep.
And this podcast is after the call. I love the name. Again,
Yes.
I have to say it
Me
because
too.
it's just it means so many things.
Yeah.
And it's going to resonate very well with the first responders. And just to make a call, we're there for you.
Yep.
And I know that you have that confidentiality, and you've shown it.
It's sacred. This whole process is sacred. It has to remain sacred.
The only way it'll work.
Because our lives are sacred. Our lives are precious. You know, time is precious. You know, and our families are precious. Our loved ones are precious. You know, we all have people who love us, and even though we might not be letting them love us, you know, we're making it hard.
Sure.
This has to be sacred.
Stop internalizing it. It's not your fault.
It's your programming.
Right? It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah,
it's okay to not be okay.
It's your programming.
Yeah.
It's not your fault.
And we can do the cheek swab. We can get you involved in the therapy, get you the help you deserve and need, and get you back on the job.
Yeah.
Get you back out there.
Hey, so I think it's about time. I think we can wrap it up, I think.
Sure.
Is there anything else you wanted to close with or anything? Or?
No, I just want to thank you for allowing me to be here today. I'm really passionate about this subject.
Yeah. I think we're going to do something with this.
Yeah.
I think something's
know
going to
we
turn.
are.
Yeah, something's going to turn into this, and I just wanted to say thank you for everybody. Of course, with Chief Filler, I don't know what I would do without him. Sometimes, we all need that guy, and I don't know. Maybe this podcast will help you reach that guy or your four-leaf clover. I'm not sure about that. I'm not in the business of outcomes. I'm just in the business of carrying the message. My name's Tim Roberto. I'm a proud team member of the Beachway Therapy Center right here in West Palm Beach and in Princeton, New Jersey. And I love what I do. And I'm very honored to be involved with Beachway. And I'm grateful to Beachway because they just gave me an incredible platform to bring in people that have dedicated their whole lives to serving others. And thank you, Beachway, for always supporting our community, the first responders, the recovery community, anybody that needs help. I've never seen you say no.
It's an incredible program. I love what you all are doing there.
Yeah.
I love that you're taking the time to learn about our, why it's happening.
Yeah.
It's going to make the therapy so much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm honored to be here today, and thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
All right.
Yeah. Wonderful.